we finish the Chrome extension browser, Chrome extension for your browser. And today we will watch the recap.
You have
again.
reached the end of this section and actually built your own browser extension. How cool is that? And you should be goddamn proud of yourself for achieving that. And just enjoy the fact that you've learned all of these awesome concepts that we now are going to recap. So, what did we learn? Well, we started out with the const variable. That is a critical part of JavaScript, and as you can see, once we learned it, we started using it much more than we used let. For all of these DOM elements that we stored in variables, we used const, as we were not going to reassign these. And speaking of DOM, we learned a lot of new things about the document object model. First and foremost, the add event listener. Down here at line 14, we hooked up an event listener with the tab button, for example. This gave us the benefit of not having to write the event listeners in our HTML. We controlled everything in the JavaScript file. And then also we learned about inner HTML. Down here at line 33, we had to use this because the .text content property just didn't do the trick when we wanted to render out list items like this. And finally, we also learned input value, which is another part of working with the DOM. And that was down here when we fetched out the value which the user had entered into the input field. Another thing we did is take one more step into the world of functions, namely we learned about parameters, which is what we defined here. We defined a leads parameter in the render function, and that gave us the ability to use this variable inside the body of the function. And also it required us to pass in the argument of myLeads when we invoked this function. This is a crucial concept to understand if you are to make functions really reusable. So I'm really happy that we went through this. Next up, a super cool thing we also learned was template strings, because that gave us the ability to write strings on multiple lines, which looks much better. It's easier for humans to parse. And also, we could use this $ and square brackets in order to escape out of the string, instead of having to use these plus signs, which quickly became unmaintainable and confusing to work with. And then a super cool thing we learned was local storage. Here, we saved things in local storage so that we could work across page refresh. This is kind of your first exposure to a database. A very simple database, of course, but still very much the same concept. And that forced us also to learn about JSON, which is a very common way of storing data in web development. You were forced to deal with this since you had to turn our array into a JSON array using json.stringify, and also we had to use json.parse to go the other way around. When we fetched a string from local storage, and that string just happened to be a JSON array, and we could parse it and turn it into a JavaScript array using the json.parse. Don't worry if you are confused about JSON parse and JSON stringify. It's totally okay to search for which one does what every single time you do it. I've done it again and again and again. But JSON is core. And one testament of that is the fact that you were exposed to JSON also in another way, namely with the manifest.json file. Here we had to configure our app, and I'm actually glad that the Chrome extension required this, because you will see JSON in many different scenarios as you work as a web developer. Finally, one of the last things we looked into was objects in arrays, namely this tabs array here.
Hello EDM Games. How are you doing?
Where you actually had an array where its first and only item was an object. So you had to first fetch out the 0th index, and then...
Does my sound sounds good? Like, I just changed some setting on my mic, and it might sound a little bit weird, but I hope it sounds good. Sounds good.
And do .url to fetch out the URL value of that object. And this is very common. Objects shoved inside of arrays. So it hopefully shouldn't scare you that much the next time you come across that. So, look at this list. It is really comprehensive. And now let's do a little thought experiment, which might help you feel less overwhelmed of all the things you don't know anything about in web development and all these fancy words. Because let's say that you for 2 weeks ago asked a developer, like, how do you create a Chrome extension? And then the developer arrogantly replied to you, well, it's not hard. You just add an event listener to a button, then fetch out the input.value, take that value stored in an object and convert it to a JSON using json.stringify, shoving it into local storage, no big deal. You could just fetch it out later and use json.parse in order to get it back into a JavaScript array, and then render it out in the function, shove it in as a parameter, and just use a template string and inner HTML to display it on the screen. I mean, no big deal, right? I mean, imagine getting such a reply. You would probably feel that you would never ever learn all of this because there's so many concepts you didn't understand. But actually, that reply from the developer is actually the exact thing we have done. And you have gone through it. So even though in and of themselves these names sound scary, you know that if you follow the right course, you can learn them. And you don't have to be afraid of any of the concepts you have yet to learn. Because whilst they sound super...
Well, I'm pretty solid with cons, add event listeners in the HTML input values. Not the function parameters. I will have to rewatch that sometime in the future. But template string I'm okay. Local storage okay. JSON object, he did it for me, so I will rewatch that as well. Object and arrays, yeah, pretty fine.
Super fancy from the outside, like JSON, actually, they're not that complicated when you look into them. So try to just have that confidence in yourself that you know you can learn complicated 3-letter acronyms, that they're nothing to be afraid of, because that'll calm you down and serve you well as you progress on this journey into web development. With that, let's actually put your skills to the test now, because you need some more repetition on these things. You need tons of repetition. These things take a lot of time to really get into your muscle memory. And we'll start with that in the next section, where you will do some quick challenges back to back. Let's move on.
Right, we will solve some quizzes or some exercise, essay. So yeah.
In this challenge, we are going to do some let and const repetitions, because I've created this fictional game here, which has a player, an opponent, the name of the game, a points variable, and a has1 variable. After it's been set up, the game is played down here at line 9 and 10. The player gets some points, and the has1 variable is flipped.
I like the way how you say you need to, but you can.
And then based upon this, we log out who the winner is in this conditional statement down here. Now, if you try to run this code, you'll see that it actually doesn't work because I've mixed up a little bit.
Hey, should we scam our way into the job field? I can apply for some job now, and let's see how they respond. Yeah, let's finish this course first. I will create like a portfolio or some stuff like that, and like put it into my resume, and then we're going to scam our way into the business.
In terms of using let and const,
not scam, but like I have skill as well, but it's more like get our way into the web development field. Yeah, should we do it?
So you need to fix that. You need to go through all variables and decide if they should be let or const. And then finally, I want you to change the console logs here from using double quotes to using template strings. So go ahead and do this right now.
What do I have to do? Go through all variables and decide if they should be let or const. Variables here, points, let players, this is const, this is const, not going to change, and then game, const as well. This is let, because point will change, has1, this will change the state as well. So yeah, pretty much it. Change the console log to use template string instead of double quotes. Change the console log. Alright, see you EDM games. See you. Should I turn on some music? This music make me not focus. Make me I'm distracted to music. I'll keep singing and dancing. So yeah, let's keep no music stream. Change the console log to use template string. Template string. So what we can do is console log player plus. So we do has1. True. Now the winners 1 is equal to this. We change all of this. Up. Do this. Hash. And then this. And then this. We delete plus the plus right here. We do this. We do this. We cancel this. We also this. Then this. And we do this. And then we do this. And then we put it into this. Players got. Okay, so we do hash over here. And then this. And this. Change the console log to use template string instead of double quotes. Got points here. Oh, maybe we can do console.log here. And then point is going to be this. £12 and won the game. Got this, and then yep, basically the same things. For this, cancel this. We do hash. We do $, $, and then opponents. This is going to be hash, open bracket, this, and then we do up, this, pretty much it. This, we change this into this, right? We do, let's run this. Yes, and we are right. We are right. Let's change it to in games. If has1, if true, and print out this. Change this to false. False. And then we run this. The winner is Nick. Pair lost the game, right? Yeah, pretty basic stuff. Pretty basic stuff.
Actually, just that comes from this string right here. Doing the same here.
Save this note. Yes, I did save it. So yeah, let's just fly through this. And then we do log out item into an array.
In this challenge, you are going to create a function that takes a single parameter, that should be an array, and then it logs out all the items of the array to the console. And I've created this my courses array here so that you can test your function. Go ahead and write this function starting here on line 7 and then return back to me when you want to see my solution.
Right, create a function that takes a single parameter array. Single parameters. An array. What the heck is this? Single parameters. What is parameter again? Parameters in JavaScript. Let's watch this. Function. Learn the function can have parameters. Function, my function, x and y. Turn x turn y. Demos. Huh? I think I'm kind of lost here. Create a function that take single parameters. Function. And we do take a single parameters. Function and log all the item of the array to the console or the function while passing in my courses as an argument. What is this? I'm lost. I will have to rewatch parameters. No clue, no clue. Values, variables you need to pass into the function in order to run the function is equal parameters. So what should I call here? Function, and then we do, let's call this function my class, and then open this. So I have to pass something in here. What is it going to be? Is it going to be my course? My courses? Because you want this parameters to be, if a function is called function or the name list to receive it. Oh, so it's like This is hard. Let's do an all the item of the array to the console log all the item of the array to the console log. My course. Let's try this. Run function my course console log my course. Call the function while passing in my course argument. What the heck is this?
Write my for loop for let I equal to function. I'll call it log items, like that. I'll name the parameter r. And then inside of the function, I need to write my for loop for let I equals 0. I is less than r dot length and I plus plus. And in the body of the for loop, we'll simply do console.log ri, like that. Let's try to run the code. Log items, passing in my courses, and we get.
Wait. So R. Yes, it's the array. I know it's it. But why is it R dot length? R dot length is the length of R. But there's no. I know this is an array, but is this not assigned to R? Huh? What's this? Log items. My course. What is this? I will have to rewatch it We watch Chrome extension, parameters. See, I told you guys about that. I'm not too sure about parameters. Template string, parameters. Where's parameters? Write your first function, how function parameter can improve our code. Yes, let's rewatch this.
Now that we have an app that actually works pretty well, we're going to do something we haven't done a lot throughout this course, which is to...
R is array parameter in general, we use purpose. But you did not assign R to this thing called my course on the last exercise. Does the computer like automatically do it for you? Or it is some kind of voodoo magic? Yeah, but I will rewatch this. To make sure I understand this thoroughly.
Refactor our code. And not only refactor it based upon a current need, we're going to refactor it based upon a hypothetical future use case. So for this, we're not going to use the mini browser, so I'm just going to minimize that one. And actually, I'm also going to take this function render leads and move it up here right below this conditional, because it is the render leads function we're mainly going to refactor. And the reason for that is the following. This function now currently has a very low degree of what...
You got a function with my courses? What a function. It doesn't say here. Function is log item. You got a function with my course, which is an array. Right here is function log item and is open parameters array. So like it's automatically assigned this into this. Yeah, log item. Oh, I see. So he has a parameter here. Ah, so it's like interchangeable. Interchange, right? Am I right with that word? The last line is right here. Log item. So it's basically taking over the ARR, the array. Because you call this actually makes sense. Makes sense. Is it a better way of writing code? Because it looks confusing to me. And it might look confusing to a lot of people as well. But I will watch this in order to understand better what this is supposed to be.
Called reusability. Because here it is hard coded that whenever it's called, it's always going to look at the myLeads variable, the one we've created up here, our global variable, and render out whatever exists in that array at that point in time. Now, let's say that we one time in the future also have another array. For example, let all leads, perhaps just a bunch of slightly unimportant leads that you've shoved into this array that you don't want to render out at any given time. But you want to perhaps have the opportunity to bring them up from time to time. If so, we would struggle to render them out. Because, as I said, in our render leads function, we only care about the myLeads array. So what we can do instead is to make this function a bit more dynamic and have it render out whatever array we tell it to render out. And the way we do that is to pass in a variable as a so-called argument when we call it. So we can take myLeads here,
what did he say?
Tell it to render out. And the way we do that is to pass in a variable as a so-called argument when
so-called argument
we call it. So we could take myLeads here,
what?
And then pass it in like this in between the parentheses so that it would be possible for us to use it inside of the body of our function, but without referring to my leads directly like this. Now,
what is this?
Let's just pause here for a minute before we rewrite the body of the function, just in case this seems weird, because you might feel you're walking on thin ice here, but actually you've been passing in arguments into functions when you have called them for quite a while now. Because that is exactly what you're doing up here, for example, the getElementById function, which you are calling and giving it the string of inputEl, so that this function, when it does its magic and walks through the HTML file in the search of its element, knows when it hits this point, here it is. This is the element I'm looking for, because Pierre told me so when he wrote.
Alright, so if you render lead, so is render lead is do everything. This doesn't make sense, man. Doesn't make sense.
This code told me that this is indeed the ID he wants. Hadn't we done that, well, the function would have been like blind to whatever it was looking for. Wouldn't be able to recognize this element. But we did, of course, give it that value. And that is also what we're doing here now. We're telling render leads that we want you to render out this data right here. And then to make this work, we also have to here write something like leads inside of the parentheses here as well. The way this works is that when this function is called with this data passed in, this data, this array, will become this variable here, which is accessible inside of the body of the function. So now we can replace my leads with leads.
Why does he make it so complicated? You can keep it the same, and basically does the same things, right?
Here, and we can replace it.
Render lead. So now you basically, it's confusing because render lead versus render my lead, right? You put it the array in, and then the function is a parameter is called lead. Doesn't make sense. This is so complicated.
Here
for no reason.
And here. At this point, the body of this function has no idea and no relation to this myLeads global variable up here. It only cares about what you entered into the function when you called it. And now what actually makes sense is to skip the usage of the word leads in the name of the function, because actually the function at this point doesn't even know that it's rendering out leads.
Right, this makes no sense. A function does not perform any checking on parameter values. Why would you use such shit function? Missing argument. Wow. This is confusing. Function find max. I don't know. I know this. Know this function. My function x and y. So x and y is parameters. Wow, this is confusing.
It could be rendering out a bunch of names of soccer teams, or a list of fruits, or whatever it is. It renders out whatever you pass into it. So actually what we want to do is remove this leads here and simply call it render. Now this of course requires us to do the same thing on the delete button. Here we'll use the new name, render, and we have just cleared out the myLeads array, so it's an empty array. So what we'll do is simply pass in myLeads here as well. And finally, on the input button, when we add new leads, we have also modified the myLeads array. So we'll take that, and paste it into the parentheses of the function invocation, and then Of
And
course,
now
use new
when
lead.
he do
This, of course,
this stuff, he pass into my lead, set up leads. So what is this? Why this
requires us
makes
to not
it
put it into the
so
function
complicated?
when you called it. And now what actually makes sense is to skip the usage of the word leads in the name of the function, because actually the function at this point doesn't even know that it's rendering out
I don't
leads.
understand what
it could
he's
be
saying
rendering
for a
out
single
a bunch
word,
of
because
names
it's so
of
confusing.
soccer teams or a list of fruits or whatever it is. It renders out whatever you pass into it. So actually what we want to do is remove this leads here and simply call it render. Now this of course requires us to do the same thing on the delete button. Here we'll use the new name, render, and we have just cleared out the myLeads array, so it's an empty array. So what we'll do is simply pass in myLeads here as well. And finally, on the input button, when we add new leads, we have also modified the myLeads array. So we'll take that and paste it into the parentheses of the function invocation, and then of course use the updated name as well.
Such
So
a
now
stupid.
we have a function called render, which can take any array you give it and then render it out. So potentially you could give it the old leads array as well, and it's a much more dynamic and reusable function. Let's try this. We'll rerun the code. Save awesome lead, epic lead, it works. And yes, the delete button also works. And just as a final notice, it doesn't matter what we call this parameter here. Could have called it YOLO if we wanted. However,
Nah, this is stupid. I wouldn't use parameters or like argument. It might be helpful in other situation. A name, yeah, you can name whatever name you want. An argument. So here, function log item array. Name here, argument here. Name, argument. Parameters, argument. Create function with parameter allows you to call function multiple times with different variable. The same type, in this case, leads. For reuse purpose. Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean now. But you basically call this, it was render leads the whole time, and you basically do the same thing. It is just you change this part of parameters, and then you do argument, argument, argument. It might be a genius function, but right now I cannot see why is it. It's for reuse purpose. I see that, but like you confusing. And like everything afterwards, you won't call render leads, but you call render my leads right here. So render my leads. This is going to be a function with the parameters. All this confusing. It's confusing. And then call leads here when you could call it my leads, like old leads. I don't see it. So function parameter array dot length. Still confusing to me. But let's keep moving.
learn CSS animations, UI design fundamentals, and intro to.
You can do basically the same things. You log item and open without parameters. can write the same things. You can do function log item. Then you call it nothing. Then you do for this, do the same things, loop it through. Then you do this, then you call this my course. And this will give you the same things. My course. Just don't see why it is so complicated. It's be the same things. Console log. No, you do log item. Your function work with my course only. Yes. Now I see. So it's basically like this. And then if you have like another, let's just say my class. Yeah, we will try. We'll try some my class equal this. Actually, this is kind of genius. Now I see why. And then we do log my class. Let's call this HTML, CSS, and this is JavaScript, and then we do my class. Now I see why. Okay. So it's like a, how can I say it? It's more like a assignment statement. So you basically now call R array here is equal to my class. I see. See, you learn new things every day. I was a little bit close-minded, but hey, this is actually pretty nice. I see. This is more like a reuse. Yeah, like you said, this is more for like reuse purpose. Then it's actually functional. It looks nice. I see. Actually, pretty nice. Does it only work for list or array? Doesn't work for it. Does it work with object as well? I don't think it will. Will it? Would it works with like an object? So you have like class 1 commas, learn CSS.
To clean code logged to the console. And these are all courses that you can take in the future when your web development skills are a little bit further down the line and you're ready to truly level up your design skills and your software.
Oh, I have to take a picture of this in case that I forget about this. Yes, and yes.
software craftsmanship. But enough about that for now, let's just move on.
This is easy. Now I have to
Okay,
remember.
now we are going to verify that you actually know how to use.
I just have to remember how the function is
Okay,
called.
now we are going to verify that you actually know how to use local storage. So you're going to do three things. First, save a value to local storage. It could be any value, a simple string, an array, that doesn't matter. Just choose whatever you want and give it whatever key you want as well. Then I want you to delete that code and refresh the page so that you start with a clean slate again, because this highlights the power of local storage, the fact that you can come back, fetch values from local storage in a context which is completely unrelated to the time when you saved to local storage. So your third step is to fetch the value from local storage and log it out.
Fetch your value from local storage, log it out. Right. So save value. It's going to be local storage. Local storage dot set item. We do key and string. Key is going to be my class. And then we comment. We do HTML, CSS, something like that. HTML. Yes, and then we do delete your code and refresh the page. Huh? Right, is it safe onto where is it? Remember CW? Yes. It's safe onto refresh the page. It's still there. And fetch your value from we do local storage dot get item, and then we call this key my class, and then we console log it, wrap everything console log this and this. We do run baby my class. Or do I have to write it in string? Yes, we have to write it in string. So this, copy of this, paste it in here. Bada bing, bada boom. Bow. Whoa! The memes.
So go ahead and give first receive credit.
Yeah. Basic stuff. This stuff, I get it. I'm pretty solid with the stuff, but like the parameter and argument was quite confusing for me. That's why now it's more clear. Now it's more clear, and I like it.
We are going to repeat add event listener and how to fetch out values from objects that live inside of arrays. So it's a three-part challenge. First, you are to fetch the button from the DOM and store it in a variable. The button I'm talking about is this one right here. You can see it says log Jane's score. It's defined here in the HTML, so maybe you have to modify that as well to give it an ID. I don't know. And then once you have that button stored in a variable, you are to use add event listener to listen for button clicks. And when the button is clicked, you are to log out Jane's score. And you got to do it via the data array. So you got to head into data, find Jane's object, and log out.
Fetch the button from the DOM, store it in a variable. Right, so buttons, what is ID, for this button, game score btn, call this const. Hey, const, this is score btn is equal to document dot get element by id. Going to be this, and then we do score slash btn use at event listeners. So it's going to be score btn dot at event listeners open. This is going to listen for one click, and then we do commas. This is going to be a function, open bracket, and then log change score when the button is clicked via data. console.log. We need to log out change score. So data zero, and then dot score. Pretty sure this is right. Paste it in here, run, click. There we go, baby.
Out to the value of, let's do this.
Hey.
So first we are to fetch that tn. Okay, so far so good. So that's the first argument. I'll run the code, click the button, and use the square bracket since object log and boot.
Boom, we got it. Generate sentence. The generate, oh man.
Okay, now I have a really cool challenge for you, because you're going to create a sentence generator. So it's this function right here. It's called a generate sentence, and it takes two parameters, desc and r. What's that? Well, it is a description and an array, and it should return a string. Actually, it's a full sentence based upon the description you pass in and the array you pass in. And it's best understood through the lens of a couple of examples. If you pass in largest countries as the description, and the array China, India, USA as the array, that is the second parameter, then the function should return the three largest countries are China, India, USA. Another example, if you pass in best fruits as the description and apples, bananas as the array, it should return the two best fruits are apples, bananas. So we actually have to construct the string, fetch out each of the items, and also the length of the array. So a little bit tricky, but give it your best shot.
So parameter is basically the name, and then we assign it into something. So I just remembered how it works. So now we have two variable, not two variable names. Now we need values. So values. How do I do this? Three largest country. This is quite hard. Do I have to loop through all of this? Probably I'd have to. When is this a list? Let's I equals 0. Here, and then I less than array dot length, and then commas, this is I plus plus, and then we do this. Now we have to pass in console dot log this is a stack question. Why stack console.log? This is going to be generate this. I should take 2 parameters. If you pass in the largest country, const. Can I hard code it in, or do I have to do something else? We will do the cheat way. And then const countries I still don't have like generate sentence. Open this. All this quotes. Up to see. Sorry. The scribe is not defined. Did I write the scribe wrong? The same. Oh, okay. Got it. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Oh na 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 na. Oh na 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 na. Oh na 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 na. Da 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 da. Oh. Let's see
Use a
this.
for loop and not use a. Okay, then let's do this. I'm gonna first start by creating this string right here. So let base string, that's what I'm gonna call it. Use a template string and do the, and then here we can't hard code the number as it's dynamic based upon how big the array is, because we're going to do r dot length. And then there's a space, and then a new dollar sign and curly bracket.
Yeah. Get some hint. Right. Get some hint. Right, get some hint. We got some hint. Let result equal. Call this array all dot length. This is going to be best fruit. This is going to be, nope, this is going to be description. Text. And then it's going to be next R. And then we have the array. Arrays. Console dot log result, and then we do generate sentence. Call this result. Huh? It doesn't work.
Brackets, and here we are to the end. And then it will be base for let I equals 0. I is less than iterator value. So that'll fetch out the specific item, but also remembering to add a comma after each of the items. Now let's try this. Generate sentence. Let's do highest mountains, and do Mount Everest and K2. We'll store the...
What is this? Jesus Christ, parameters and fucking argument. Hey, I have I will go grab lunch first, and then we will come back with this.